All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Reaction Show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Ric Butler, standing here in Memorial Gymnasium as number 6 Tennessee falls to Vanderbilt by a score of 76-75. There are so many different directions to take this game.
Yeah.
I'll start with the end, and then we can kind of work our way through it. But Tennessee falls after Chaz Williams misses a second of 2 free throws. Tennessee worked very hard to close a 16-point deficit over the course of the second half. Was able to get it to 2. Chaz Williams gets fouled with 2.8 seconds left. Hits the first free throw, misses the second free throw. That's how Tennessee loses by 1. But they didn't just lose on that play, Ryan. Again, so many things went into this game. What are you sitting here thinking about just about half an hour after the final whistle blew?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it at the start. There's just so many different ways you can go with it, and so many different ways why Tennessee lost this game. I think maybe the thing, I don't know, it's one of two things. I guess I'll just go with, Tennessee lost control of the game when they benched. Chaz Williams picked up the second foul with 7.5 minutes to go. He did not play the rest of the first half. Through the first 13 minutes of the game, Chaz Williams was the best player on the court, and Tennessee's offense was just unable to get anything going without. And, typically when that happens, Tennessee's defense, I guess this will lead into my second point. Typically when that happens, Tennessee's defense is able to grind out the game enough to where things don't really get away from them. And it's not that things necessarily got away from them in the first half, but that did not happen. I mean, until the last 6 minutes of the game, in which Vanderbilt did not score much when Tennessee was mouthing its comeback, Vanderbilt had just a ton of success offensively. They got downhill and scored at the basket, especially in that stretch in the first half. As Felix Okpara was also on the bench with 2 fouls, and then they came out the second half just red hot from three-point range. So I think it's kind of a combination of those things. I think that was a very bad decision by Rick Barnes to bench Chaz Williams for that full 7 minutes. And I think at the same time, it was going to be very difficult for Tennessee to win when you consider how well Vanderbilt played on the offensive end. And obviously those two things work together, of how well Vanderbilt played on the offensive end and Tennessee not doing what they normally do on the defensive end.
Yeah, you look at some of the numbers, and for transparency, I don't have the stat sheet in front of me, but it is right here on this board, so I'm going to be looking up here. Tennessee shot the ball better from the field. Tennessee had more three-pointers. Tennessee had 1 more free throw. Turnovers were the same. Steals were the same. Rebounds were fairly close, 29-25 in Vanderbilt's advantage. Tennessee made a little bit of they upped that stat there in the last couple minutes. But you're right. It was just those 2 slides that Tennessee had where they just couldn't get much going. It was at one point a couple minutes in the second half. I believe both teams were combined 7 of 9 3-point shooting. The issue for Tennessee is that Vanderbilt was 5 out of 6 in those numbers. So it's a tough way to. It's obviously a tough way to lose. But I thought that Tennessee hung tight. I thought that they made a good comeback. But those two stretches where they just couldn't get a lot of offense going, especially in the first half, like you alluded to, just knows Chaz Williams. Chaz Williams goes out, Vanderbilt steps up. Tennessee just could not find their way back entirely.
For sure, and you're right. I mean, it's a good point. Just looking at the stats, it's obviously a 1-point game, so you expect, generally speaking, the stats to be similar. But the stats are very particularly similar.
Yeah.
And there's not one metric. I think one that does stand out, because we just got rebounds as a whole here. Vanderbilt had a good, I think it was 11 offensive rebounds for Vanderbilt and like 14 defensive rebounds, 15 defensive rebounds for Tennessee. So a very high offensive rebound rate for Vanderbilt.
Right.
They scored a lot of second chance points. That's not how, I thought Tennessee would have an advantage in this game. Not that Vanderbilt had been an average rebounding team, and they're a smaller team. I thought Tennessee might be able to impose their will there a little bit. So that was for sure a big aspect of it. And yeah, I mean, second half, Tennessee quick 5-0 run, Igor Milicic, so they got it to 1. And then it was just boom, 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 boom. Four straight threes for Vanderbilt. Got it to 13. And, yeah, I mean, really, until that final 6 minutes, and what was a very methodical comeback, Tennessee was not able to – the game from that point until that very end was played in double digits almost the entirety.
You wrote about it in your takeaways article, which you can go ahead and find on RockyTopInsider.com. It was a 20-9 run in that second half. Is that what it was?
In the first half, I believe.
First half, okay.
Yes. Once the Chaz Williams went down, it was 20-9 the rest of the first half.
And again, a 29 run is going to be hard in its own right, but then when you add on, Vanderbilt's hot shooting in the second half, just sort of them building that lead. Again, Tennessee did their best to fight and scratch and claw back into this game. They clearly did. They made it a game in the last minute or so, but Tennessee just wasn't able to get it done. Talk about Chaz Williams real quick. Has struggled so far in the last 3 SEC games. Again, I don't have the stats in front of me. Had a better game today, but it wasn't just about the shooting for Chaz, was it?
Yeah, he shot the ball well. 4-6 from 3. I think scored 17 points. But the turnover, a lot of just bad plays. 5 turnovers in the game. And in that stretch where it went from, like I said, 1 to 13 and just a snap, he has a turnover that led to a transition 3. He bricked the mid-range jump shot that led to a long rebound and a transition 3. So it was that stuff that was more of an issue for him in this game. And I feel for him to be back in his hometown and to miss the free throw that would have tied the game with 2 seconds left. Really, the possession before that, we didn't even talk about how crazy that was. It felt like Tennessee had gotten it to 2. They had the ball. Chaz got blocked at the basket. Vanderbilt got fouled and was going to shoot the bonus with like 4 seconds. Missed the front end. Just a really dumb, aggressive play by Vanderbilt going for a steal. Fouled Chaz in the backcourt. So even that last 13 seconds, it kind of seemed like Tennessee had its opportunity, was pretty much dead, and all of a sudden back to life again. So feel for Chaz missing the free throws or missing the free throw. Did some good things, shot the ball better, but kind of a reverse of the Georgia game where Rick Barnes talked about him doing basically a lot of things really well besides shooting the ball. Tonight he shot the ball well. He did not do a lot of other things very well in the court, and definitely felt very costly for Tennessee.
Yeah, struggled in other places, certainly. And again, those turnovers continued to they continue to throw Tennessee off their game. And you have 11 of those throughout the game. That is going to be tough. Ryan, just kind of thinking about the things that Rick Barnes might have said during the press conference. He was disappointed with the way that his 2 seniors, Jemai Meshack and Zakai Ziegler, they fouled 3-point shooters. Yeah. That was something he talked about consistently during that 13-minute stretch or so with the media.
Yeah, I mean, that's consistently been a problem for both those guys. Ziegler, some of it he's 5'8", trying to contest shots, so he's got to be a little more aggressive. And Meshack, it's just a common theme. And look, to me, it's kind of a fine balance of some of that with those 2 guys, Meshack in particular. You just kind of live with it. They play really aggressive on defense. I think that's somewhat of the offside, but then you have 2 of them in a game like this. It's easy to point to as a big swing. And I guess the thing I would say is just how wholeheartedly I disagree with Barnes' decision to bench Zakai for that long. I mean, I think they should have gone back to him at the under 4 timeout. If they were playing well or they were hanging in there, it'd be one thing. The game completely flipped when he left. And look, 2 things, I guess. One note. Zakai, until Tennessee started fouling at the end of the game intentionally, Zakai had 2 fouls. So foul trouble was no issue for him in the second half because of that. And to me, and I get Rick Barnes is not a 2-play guy with 2 fouls in the first half, though he's been a little bit more lenient in that in recent years. You can't sit here and call the guy your security blanket on Tuesday night or on Wednesday night and then turn around and not trust him enough to play without fouling in the final 7 minutes of the half when this game's slipping away from you. I think Rick Barnes does a great job. I think he's done a great job with his team, but to me, that's just inexplicable. Not the only reason Tennessee lost tonight, but certainly put them in a hole when I think they could have gone into halftime in an advantage position.
It's a phenomenal point by Ryan right there. He sees the game in a different way. If you want to go and see more of what he thinks about this game, head over to RockyTopInsider.com to see all of our post-game analysis and coverage. Anything else you want to mention before we get out of here? And obviously there's quite the crowd right here on the court, but anything else you want to mention from this game?
I guess just the last thing, again, Felix Okpara, Igor Milicic, Tennessee's front court had a pretty good game, especially offensively. I think Okpara scored like 16. I know that was his, whatever it was his Tennessee high.
7 of 7 at one point, maybe even got it to 8 of 8. Let me check back here.
You'd like to see both those guys be a little bit better.
7 of 7 for 16, 2 of 3 from the free throw line.
You'd like to see both those guys be a little bit better on the glass than they were. The 4 blocks again from Okpara. To me, it kind of feels like he's starting to turn a corner. So if you're looking for a positive and a tough loss for Tennessee, it's that Felix Okpara keeps on playing well.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, and certainly had a nice, productive, efficient, underlined efficient game tonight here on the floor. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us today here from Memorial Gymnasium. We will be headed back to Knoxville soon. As what's next on tap for Tennessee?
Mississippi State on Tuesday night.
Big Mississippi State team heads to Knoxville on Tuesday night. Again, this is Ryan Shumper. You can follow him at rshump00. I am Rick Butler. You can follow me at Rick_Butler. Otherwise, make sure you're checking out RockyTopInsider.com each and every day. Again, number 6, Tennessee falls to Vanderbilt here in Nashville by a score of 76-75. Thanks for listening to the RTI Reaction Show. See you back for the next one.